The Writhing Fortress is by far the coolest part of ESO's Writhing Wall event. It's pretty epic, with giant kaiju Daedra for us to take down. It's open for everyone, so all kinds of players will be working together in there. It's not too challenging, so anyone can contribute, and it's pretty fun. It's also the grand conclusion to the battle for the Writhing Wall, and it's only available for 1 week. So I encourage all of you to get in there while it lasts and bring all your friends. Thank you to Bethesda UK for sponsoring this video, and big thanks to Gina Bruno and Zos for arranging access to the press server so we could make this video for you guys. This is Khan, you're watching Ninja Pulls, and welcome to this guide to the Writhing Fortress, aka Writhing Wall Phase 3. I'm going to explain what the fortress is and what you should expect going in, a breakdown of fights and mechanics, plus build suggestions to make you kill more and die less. I wouldn't call any of these spoilers, there's no story here, just combat, some mechanics, and a lot of Daedra. And because it's an open instance, you cannot expect to explore at your own pace. There will be other players in there getting it done without waiting for you to figure things out, so you might as well go in prepared. The entrance to the fortress is going to be at the base of the Writhing Wall, near the main siege camp on Solstice. At least that's where it appeared for us. Now for the painful bit. Without the content pass and access to Solstice, you cannot enter the Writhing Fortress. It is the only aspect of the event which is exclusive to content pass owners, and it will be up for 1 week once Phase 3 is triggered on your server. Zos have said it will never return once that week is over. Once it's gone, it's gone. Once you enter the fortress, you'll see the familiar hellscape of Oblivion, dotted with worm-cult structures and architecture, a sort of necromantic pocket realm. You can pick up the quest here, which along with your allies from the Fellowship, will give you some guidance as you progress through the fortress. In short, there are 3 bosses we need to kill: the Harvester Guardian in the Western Wing, the Bone Colossus Guardian in the Eastern Wing, and the final boss Zyzax the Titan in the North. Doesn't matter if you go east or west first, in fact, 2 groups can do them simultaneously, and that's probably what will happen most of the time. So you'll probably have to clear the fortress multiple times just to get to see everything. But let's start with the Western Wing. This is a series of battlements and corridors with magical barriers blocking your progress. Fortunately, the Worm Cult also left a ton of ballistas lying around, convenient. We just kill the Daedra manning them, turn them around to point back at the Worm Cult's own fortifications, and shoot the towers powering the barrier. Maybe the Worm Cult put Manimako's dead grandma in charge of defense strategy, but either way, not great. Shoot at the tower, not the barrier itself, until the crystal on top of each tower is broken. Then the first barrier disappears and you can move on. There are only a handful of ballistas. Look, you can say ballistae if you prefer, both seem to be equally correct, but ballistas is easy to say when you're doing a bloody voiceover. There are only a handful of ballistas at each site, to prevent us from nuking the towers with 20 projectiles at once. There are barrels with ballista parts at each site, and many of the humanoid enemies also drop the parts when you kill them. Each ballista fires 2 shots before it needs to be repaired again. Each tower seems to take about 6 hits. And like I said, there aren't many ballistas for us to use, and people are going to be jostling for their chance to fire, so make yours count. If all siege engines are occupied, just pick up some ballista parts for the next barrier, run ahead, and clear out the Daedra in your path while you wait for the barrier to come down. By the way, you don't need any tanks to deal with these trash packs, but if you want to bring Rune of Displacement or something like Rush of Agony to pull them into a stack, that'll save you a little bit of time. Dead enemies with green AoEs like this have dropped ballista parts, so just hit the synergy to pick them up. The next battlement you get to is impassable due to a second barrier and an Infernium spitting a deadly beam down the corridor. Take shelter on the sides and grapple across to the siege platforms on the left and right to take down those towers. Again, using the Worm Cult's own defenses against them. Just be aware that the nearest barrel of ballista parts might be quite far from the ballistas you're using. That's why it's smart to pick up these parts as soon as you run past a barrel or a dead enemy with that synergy available. Once the second barrier is down, the Infernium will retreat and you can safely cross the battlements without getting incinerated. You'll see it's taken refuge through a door on the left. Time to go beat it up and recruit it to our side. You don't need to kill the adds in here, just make your way to the Infernium, again using the sides to shelter from its beam attack. Elite adds called Darkbinder Beast Handlers will appear to defend the Infernium, and these can be annoying, but you do not actually need to kill them. Just get the Infernium down to 0% health and they will disappear. Now the Infernium is defeated, it's lost the will to defend the fortress and will come work for us. Again, not a super tight defense plan. Nice job, Grandma. At this point, the group can split. The Fellowship NPCs will show up to escort the Infernium, and you can go with them back the way you came to keep the Daedra off your new friend and bring down the third barrier from the battlements on the east. Or, if enough other players are already doing that, you can grapple to the platform on the northwest, kill the adds along the path and prepare to go through that third barrier as soon as your teammates take it down. Until that third barrier is removed, this path remains closed, and you'll be unable to take down the fourth and final barrier. When you attack this fourth barrier, both siege platforms are positioned so they can only hit one of the towers. So both groups of players will actually be right next to each other, just separated by this little wall. It's Zos's way of baking in some very basic teamwork into the encounter. But you can technically do it all by yourself as a solo player. That's what I had to do most of the time on PTS, but I doubt you'll get the chance during the event. By the way, if you arrive late to the party and enter the fortress well after the instance is underway, you can immediately see what's happening by opening up the map and seeing which icon has the crossed swords behind it. That shows what stage of each wing is currently being worked on. After entering the western or eastern wing, you'll also see a portal which will take you to the most recently cleared stage. Once that fourth barrier is down, you can grapple back to the main path or go around and jump down. You'll hear Scordo the Knife getting all excited and start yelling, "Everyone, advance!" Head to the final gate that's between you and the Harvester Guardian. If it's closed and nothing is happening, go back and find the Infernium. It's probably being waylaid by Daedra that are attacking it and blocking its path. Just kill them and allow the Infernium to move forward, then when it reaches the door, it will blast it open. Recruiting this little beastie was a pretty good move. Just don't get too attached. Now we gotta take down the Harvester Guardian herself, the boss of the Western Wing. The Infernium isn't much good against her, and she's out of range of all of our attacks, so we're gonna have to take her down with Siege. There are three simple components to this fight. 1. Take down the Harvester's wards. 2. Attack her with every ballista you've got while the wards are down. And 3. Keep the Daedra from killing your ballista operators and slowing down the fight. The wards are the most important. The Harvester takes 0 damage whilst they're up, and she summons 4 of them every time. Each ward needs to be hit twice, first with a fire ballista and second with a cold fire ballista. This is important, guys. Every platform has both types of ballista on it, and there are only 10 ballistas in the entire room, so try not to waste your shots. You can see the wards start out with a golden fiery glow, that indicates they are vulnerable to fire. Hitting them with a cold firebolt will do absolutely nothing. You gotta hit them with the matching damage type, fire. Once that happens, the ward will shrink a little and turn blue, indicating you have to hit it with a blue cold firebolt next. There is no time limit on this, but I can already imagine the absolute rage in game chat when people don't get this mechanic and keep doing it wrong. Once the last of her wards are destroyed, the Harvester Guardian becomes vulnerable, but not for very long, so make every shot count. At this point, it doesn't matter if it's fire or cold fire, just hit her as many times as you can with every ballista before her wards go back up, and you have to rinse and repeat. It's worth mentioning that while her wards are down, she will also go on the offensive, throwing a large, dangerous AoE at the ground underneath a player. If she's looking at you, it's a good chance it'll be under your feet, and if that happens, get out of it quickly, it hurts. While all this is happening, keep grabbing backpacks of ballista parts from the nearest barrel, repair the ballistas as needed, and slaughter any Daedra that are hassling the siegers. If you've got a tank to taunt the really big ones, pull them together next to the ballistas and stack them up. Then DDs can just throw their ults in between sieging and nuke everything. We can't use our ults against the Harvester, so we might as well do this. But do not waste too much time trying to clean up everything. The Daedra respawn constantly throughout this fight, and they're really just there to distract us from the Harvester. That's pretty much it for this fight. It's an exercise in multitasking. Deal with the wards correctly, keep sieges repaired in preparation for the burst when they come down, and keep mopping up the swarms of Daedra, especially those who are going to disrupt the sieges and slow you down. In theory, if you build properly for this, there's nothing that should kill you in here, but if you take your eye off the ball or don't have major resolve, for example, you can definitely get clapped. If you're on one of the lower platforms nearer to the Harvester, be especially wary of the giant Death Hound that has a chance to spawn in the middle of the room. He will throw out lots of flaming AoEs, which will probably land on those lower platforms, and that can make you run out of space pretty fast. But honestly, I think there are going to be so many players in here that with only 10 ballistas available, any Daedra that spawn in will probably die pretty quickly. Again, I'm not sure about the logic of hiring this humongous Harvester lady to guard your fortress, and then put her in a room with 10 ballistas conveniently pointed right at her. But I really don't think Manamako's Nan should expect a birthday card this year. Once somebody lands the kill shot, a golden chest will spawn in the middle of the room. There's nothing that great in there, sadly, but you might as well loot it, then take the portal back to the Writhing Fortress entrance area. Now let's go over the Eastern Wing. This one is simpler, but involves more teamwork. The path splits immediately into an upper route along the cliff and a lower route through the pools of Azuroplasm. Both routes move in parallel, with each opening the way for the other as they go. Kinda like Helra Citadel, where the upstairs group opens the way for the downstairs group. Doesn't matter which route you take, you can easily jump down or grapple up any time, and again, this can be completed pretty easily by a single player. I'd say the upper route is slightly safer if you're worried about that, but again, there will probably be so many players in here that you'll never feel in any danger. There are 3 Bannermen champions along the lower route which must all be killed, each marked by a banner icon on the map. Each of them stands below a platform with a huge crystal called an inhibitor stone. You must kill the crystal first to make the champion vulnerable. So head up to the platform and don't stay in the Azuroplasm, it deals damage and will kill you eventually. There are protective resonance orbs around the area, floating rocks which you can heavy attack to make yourself temporarily immune, just like the lava level in Vateshran Hollows. But you probably won't need these orbs until later when we reach the end boss. Anyway, zap the crystal, then jump down and kill the champion. And if you have the aggro, or if you're a tank, whatever you do, don't move the champion. People are going to ult dump these guys, so running away and kiting them around is the worst and most annoying thing you could possibly do. People do this all the time in the overworld, and it's maddening. For the same reason, either ditch your companion for a while, or make sure you remove their taunt before you bring them in here. They'll be pretty much useless in the fortress anyway. Killing the champion extends the bridge overhead, allowing the upstairs group to continue on. You can either grapple up and join them, or continue along the small islands below, killing trash packs as you go. Pro tip, if you're upstairs on the battlements, you can make a pretty neat stack using some of the corners. The upstairs group can now cross the bridge and deal with their own mini-boss encounter. It's not possible to stack everything here, but tanks can chain in small adds while DDs focus the big lich and avoid the colossus spin attack in the middle. Once the lich is down, this necromantic circle will disappear and you'll be able to throw the nearby switch to open up the barrier below the bridge, which is blocking the downstairs group. Do this 2 more times with slight variations. Downstairs group takes out the crystal, then the champion, to extend a bridge for the upstairs group, who can then cross that new bridge, defeat another mini-boss encounter, and remove the barrier that's now blocking the downstairs group, and so on. There are plenty of adds along the way, but nothing too complicated. Just bring some half-decent AoE damage and you'll cruise through. Like I said, if you find your route blocked by an unextended bridge, jump down and deal with the enemy. Or if you are downstairs and there's a barrier in your way, grapple up and do the same. Again, use the map and look for the icons with crossed swords to see how far things have progressed in your current instance. When all 6 encounters are done, both groups will arrive at the Bone Colossus Guardian, the boss of the Eastern Wing. This one is quicker and easier than the Western Wing, but also a bit more dangerous, which I think makes it more fun. There are 3 more champions here, each with their own inhibitor stone. You have to keep killing these crystals to make the champions vulnerable, and bringing down all 3 champions will destroy the Bone Colossus Guardian. However, if you take too long to kill all 3 of them, they will respawn and you'll have to start again. That made this part very tough to solo, but once lots of players are in here, I can't imagine it'll ever be an issue. So you don't need to split up or anything. In fact, it might be easier to stick together unless your group is really massive. The downstairs group arrives on the Eastern champion, so you may as well start there. This is Bastius the Uncivilized, who has Lich-type attacks, think of Narayanith from Crypt of Hearts, a channel which shoots crystal AoEs and skulls at nearby players, which cannot be interrupted, by the way, and a very annoying move where she chains you in and then does an exploding AoE around herself. Get out of that quickly. Focus on the crystal, and once it's down, then ult and burst the boss. She will not move, so be careful when beaming through the crystal. The edge of the Azuroplasm pool is right behind you here, and you can very easily put your heal into it and die from the extra damage. Don't ask me how I know that. That's another reason I suggest maybe doing this one first. She feels a lot more dangerous than the other 2 champions, so if your group isn't that big, you might want to get her out of the way first. The middle champion is Veskros of the Icy Tides. She's also ranged and doesn't move much. In fact, she doesn't do much besides light attacks and AoEs, so she's not very dangerous at all. The threat up here is from all the adds that she summons, and the breath from the Bone Colossus itself, which only affects us up here on this platform. Every time he's about to do the attack, Veskros will cast a protective dome around herself. Get inside that is the only way to survive that attack. Easy. Kill the crystal, ult the champion, crystal, champion, etc. The Western champion is Fezarox the Unyielding. Finally, a melee enemy, so tanks, or whoever has aggro, should keep him on the crystal so both get nuked very easily. Just don't stay too long in the AoEs. And when this champion is about to die, or whichever one you're killing last, try to get a quick look at the Bone Colossus as it dies. Again, a chest and a portal will spawn on the middle platform, so you can head back to the entrance, where you'll see the central barrier is now gone and the way is open to the Soul Spire. This is a good thing to look for as soon as you first enter the fortress. If you don't see that big turquoise barrier directly opposite the entrance, that means this instance is already well underway and people are already fighting the final boss, or they're about to, so hurry up and get in there. Also, if you've just come back from completing one wing, most likely other players have already been doing the same in the other wing without you, so they may also be about to finish at the same time. Again, look for that barrier and check your map icons to see what's up. Once we enter the Soul Spire path, we see the same split route as we did in the Eastern wing, downstairs through the pool or upstairs along the cliff, but there's only one champion here and one switch. Let each other through, and before long you'll arrive at the portal to the final boss. Again, there isn't much to spoil here, but this last fight can get pretty chaotic in a fun way. And if you just want maximum chaos and don't really want to know anything about this in advance, feel free to skip ahead a few minutes to the build section of this video. Still here? Good. Zyzax is a freaking enormous titan. Maybe the largest enemy we've ever seen in ESO. This fight draws upon several of the mechanics we've already seen inside the fortress. Ballistas and ballista parts, deadly Azuroplasm, resonance orbs, grappling, and lots of adds. To start the fight, you can actually walk up to the main platform and just light attack him. Zyzax will move around a lot, and you'll need to grapple from platform to platform to stay in range and be able to damage him. He also throws down a lot of dangerous AoEs on the ground, and sometimes he will cover an entire platform in fire, forcing you to get the hell out of there. As far as I could tell, there are no barrels with ballista parts in here, so in order to shoot at him, you must A. kill some adds and take the synergy for ballista parts, and B. follow Zyzax to a platform that is in range of him, repair the ballistas there, and hit him before he moves again. The sheer amount of mobility in this fight means you're probably going to want to self-heal, at least the Writhing Blow slottable CP, or a very coordinated group that can stick together. Like I said, it's pretty chaotic in a fun and deliberate way, but there are no harsh DPS or survivability checks here, and you'll get the hang of it pretty quickly. Just keep moving and make every shot count. every direct hit with a ballista bolt deals 5% damage to Zyzax's HP. So if players are smart, this fight can actually be over pretty quickly. Also, if all the nearby ballistas are taken, but you have some ranged attacks slotted, you should be able to get close enough to his hitbox to actually damage him directly, unlike the Harvester boss. Fate Carver can definitely reach him if you can get close enough. At about 60% and 30% health, he will fly away and summon Stormcallers to the fight. The percentage thresholds are never super clear, because Zyzax is always taking 5% hits, often by 2 ballistas at once, so it might not be exactly 60% and 30%, but it's definitely in that ballpark. 2 Stormcallers will spawn in the middle of the Azure Plasm, so in order to stay alive long enough to kill them, you're either going to have to use the orbs around the arena to give yourself immunity and stand in the pool for a little while, bring a solid healer with you, or use the ballistas against them. You could also try bringing a ranged DPS setup and attack them from one of the platforms, although I didn't actually try that. Tanks can help by debuffing the Stormcallers and stacking as many other Daedra on top of them as possible, especially the larger elite adds that will spawn in around the area. Once the Stormcallers are down, the boss will return and you can continue the fight, same as before. Follow him when he moves, kill the Daedra on the platforms, take their ballista parts and shoot Zyzax before he moves again. He only has a few locations that he flies to, and with enough people, you can make sure that each nearby platform is repaired and ready to go each time he moves. So you can get in 4 hits or more on that position. That's 20% of his health gone. After he's summoned the second round of Stormcallers at 30% and you've killed them, then you can finish him. He will return to his starting position and won't move again, so just kill him here. That's it. You beat the Writhing Fortress and should have a nice new title, Wall Breaker. To complete the quest, grapple across the divide, where you can enter the Soul Spire itself, which is an incredibly cool and evil looking space. Break the Soul Spire core at the heart of it and hand in the quest. And remember, just like the combat itself, this room, this quest, and all the NPC dialogue will be gone from the game after a week, so maybe take your time. But before we finish, some quick tips on how to build for the fortress. For a longer and more detailed breakdown, watch this video I released a couple of weeks ago about how to give your damage dealer a super thick skin without reducing your damage. There is no point making our characters tanky if it also makes them useless in combat. And too many players get tempted into making that trade-off because they don't realize there's a better way, by using very simple tools like Major Resolve, self-sourced damage buffs, tri-stat potions, and bi-stat food. Throw in Pragmatic Fate Carver and Writhing Blows, and you start to become seriously difficult to kill, while still dealing stupid amounts of damage. Here's the setup that I was using, very simple and probably very familiar. A stamina character with Herald of the Tome, Stormcalling, and Assassination. From Herald of the Tome, Pragmatic Fate Carver as our main source of damage, for the free shield, and to trigger the healing from Writhing Blows. Cephaliarch's Flail to build up Crux for Fate Carver. Inspired Scholarship for Major Brutality and Sorcery. Rune of Displacement can also be handy if nobody else is stacking enemies, but it's not needed. From Stormcalling, Hurricane for Major Resolve. Unless you know for sure that you'll have a tank with Frostcloak accompanying you, definitely bring this armor buff. You could bring Critical Surge for some more free heals, or Mage's Wrath for a fun AoE execute, but you're unlikely to need any of these. Assassination is mostly for the passives, but Relentless Focus for Major Savagery and Prophecy, to take a bit of pressure off our stamina now and then, and also for massive single target hits and a bonus heal. Killer's Blade for single target execute, although there aren't that many targets you would use it on, so feel free just to slot it passively. You could also bring Reaper's Mark and place it on small adds who die quickly to give yourself some free Major Berserk. Finally, Quick Cloak for Major Evasion and the damage, Blockade as our primary weapon dot, and maybe Elemental Susceptibility if you want to be absolutely sure you're reaching full penetration on every key target. You can copy this exact setup on an Arcanist, a Nightblade, or a Sorcerer, and frankly the Nightblade part isn't necessary, so if you want to do something similar with any other class, just swap out Assassination for Ardent Flame, Animal Companions, Aedric Spear, Gravelord. I know the Fate Carver meta is getting old, but you can't really argue with the results. Just use your typical CPs, Biting Aura, Master at Arms, etc., but make sure you have Writhing Blows slotted from the blue tree and Bloody Renewal from the red tree. Writhing Blows will heal you for crazy amounts as you beam your way through swarms of Daedra in here, and it can even save you from dying. Bloody Renewal tops up your stamina every time you kill something, which in these big trash balls is happening constantly. If you're a Magicka character, go with Siphoning Spells instead. You can even slot both if you want. Now, you don't have to take any of this advice. If you just show up on a fairly squishy character with average DPS, you'll probably still be fine, because there'll be so many other players around. But if you really want to hold your own in here, consider some of the tips I just mentioned. And if you don't have a stamina character, you can always go with a Magicka character with Puncturing Sweep instead. It doesn't quite compete with Pragmatic Fate Carver for the shield or the range, but the free healing and cleave damage is excellent. And most of the fighting you'll be doing in the fortress is going to be melee combat anyway. You could even take my Dark Templar setup and tweak it so that it has Storm Calling instead of Assassination, again for Hurricane and Major Resolve. Before anyone asks about gear sets, I don't think it's going to matter that much. I'm assuming that Miner's Slayer doesn't do anything against enemies in the Writhing Fortress, so you do not need a trial set. So just keep it simple and use whatever you've got, so long as it's a real damage set. Unsoul's Torment is great, because it just works anywhere. The usual suspects like Null Archer, Deadly will also work great with the right skills. Even two crafted sets like Order's Wrath and Tideborn would be pretty excellent on the setup I just described. So do not worry too much about the gear, it makes less difference than most people seem to think. And anyway, we're not worried about squeezing out every last drop of DPS, but just dealing enough damage to clear quickly and have enough survivability to not die and miss all the fun. That about wraps it up. Quite a long video, but I seem to have been one of the only players to clear the fortress repeatedly while it was on PTS, so I wanted to make sure all the testing and information I gathered was here in one place. I hope it helps you make more sense of what's going on in there, to crush your foes, and just enjoy yourself a bit more. And if you want to join us when we go in with our Ninja Pulls guild, join our Discord. We're going to try to be one of the first groups in the world to clear this place. And if you're glad that guides and content like this exist, please support Ninja Pulls either here on YouTube by becoming a member, find us over on Twitch, or set up a donation on Ko-fi or Patreon. All links in the description. Or just share the video. That helps us a lot as well. Thank you guys. Your support is what enables us to keep doing this. I really hope you enjoy Phase 3 of the event. From my time on PTS and on the press server, I thought Zos did a nice job with the Writhing Fortress, especially the last boss. I kinda wish more of the Writhing Wall event could have been like this. But I'm especially intrigued as to what they will do in future, given that this is their first real stab at something like this, and it is something Mike Finnegan has hinted pretty heavily they want to do again. And with that, I will wish you a glorious victory. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.